Hello, everyone. Welcome back for some more of my reading of Fate Strange Fake. We're continuing with Volume 3 as we get to the interlude labeled Watcher, even though it's slightly cut off up there, but that's okay. The important thing is that the text itself is not cut off, like so. Watcher is really interesting. Watcher is really interesting. The one thing that someone did say is that I don't know if I'll be able to find it there, the old man sailor that is of part of Watcher there, this guy is someone that I may know. And they specifically said if they were to be another class, they would be an Avenger. My immediate thought, Captain Ahab. We'll see. I don't know what's up with Watcher. Maybe we'll see in this interlude. What an interesting servant guy. The dude really just summoned like the random character select, and that is extremely interesting. So let's get going with the interlude titled Watcher, and then the proper chapter 8, why don't we? So let's see here. Watcher. The Wetland Mansion. Time rewinds to when the King of Heroes faced the mystery bowman. The heroic spirits summoned for the Holy Grail War are fundamentally divided into 7 classes: Saber, Archer, Lancer, Caster, Rider, Assassin, and Berserker. It is said, however, that an extra class corresponding to none of these is very occasionally summoned. Records remain to testify that a heroic spirit belonging to a class called Avenger was actually summoned in the Third Fuyuki Grail War. Sigma, seated in a sturdy chair on the ground floor of the mansion, has been apprised of this information. So, he asked, is this Watcher an extra class? A shadow, the boy with wings attached to his back, probably Icarus, right? That just makes sense for Icarus, appeared to answer Sigma's question. Not exactly. Under the Fuyuki system, an extra class never replaces one of the 3 knights. Going by the remaining phases, the servant meant to fight in the Holy Grail War must be a Lancer. Only you, not the heroic spirit, will be that Lancer. What you called forth is a lookout, and an obstacle you must overcome to become a Lancer while living. Whoa, that's crazy. Okay. I know what your words mean. I've slept and thought them over and over since you told me this morning, but I can't accept that answer. A human becoming Lancer doesn't even make sense. Sigma dispassionately stated his opinion. We never expected you to start with a nap either. Well, it's this whole Holy Grail War that doesn't make sense. If we manifested as a proper extra class, although it's odd to talk about an extra class being proper, we'd probably manifest as Gatekeeper. Okay, that's another class, the Shadow replied in the form of the boy with the serpent staff. Now that might be Asclepius. That one might be Asclepius. I'm not going to do the voice just in case it's not. Although it's doubtful whether the rule that one of the 3 knights can't become an extra class applies, no, I know several cases where they do. As Shadows, we've received a certain degree of information concerning this war from the Grail, but that information is based on the original Fuyuki rules. This Snowfield Grail War is too much of a departure. It's a fake. These things happen. Sigma easily assented with a shrug. The Watcher you summoned, the Shadow continued, has already started observing this city, and it's already spotted a tear. What do you mean? The heroic spirit that was supposed to be summoned as Archer, one of the 3 knights, has been transmuted into the extra class Avenger, and things that should never have been summoned had crept into this land, drawn to each other. At that point, the child vanished, and the captain appeared in a corner, leaning on a cane. Yes, I can feel a presence like my own out there toward the ravine. Oh, there we go, right? Yeah. What do you mean, like your own? A nostalgic scent that makes my blood boil. I feel pure rage bubbling up from my bowels. Oh, if I had been summoned as a proper heroic spirit, I would have manifested not as a rider, but as a class founded on vengeance. I cannot but regret that I am not, that I am here as its shadow. That is probably Captain Ahab. The emotion gradually vanished from the words, and Sigma sensed the eerie dynamism roiling like cold magma at their bottom, but he made no attempt to pursue the conversation. The self-proclaimed shadows occasionally spoke to him of regret or hatred, but he took no interest in any of it. It did not seem likely to furnish a clue to the true name of the heroic spirit he had summoned, so his policy was to act as if he did not hear it. But perhaps owing to his inborn nature, to his... Inborn? Okay. Bit of a strange... Oh, no, I'm thinking of the word inbred. No, that's a very different word then. Okay, never mind, we're good. Or to the special training he had undergone since infancy. Every word that reached his ears was faithfully recorded in his brain, even words he meant to ignore. Nevertheless, he could not go on listening to the shadows grumble forever. Sigma put together what little he had gleaned from the earlier conversation, decided to pose them a question. In short, you objectively observed the Holy Grail War in the city. Is that correct? Not us. The thing you summoned, to be precise. Oh, okay. Somewhere in the city. Dumas's study. Since this morning, I've got a weird feeling that I was being watched. Castor, Alexandre Dumas père, cocked his head to the side and glanced around. He was in the room that had been allotted to him, revising the Hydra Venom dagger. Everything looked as usual. He saw the countless bookshelves and mountains of books, the numerous different dishes and snacks arranged on the table, the notebook computer connected to the internet, the wired telephone in an old-fashioned design. But something was different. He felt uneasy, as if the quality of the space itself had changed. Dumas flashed his teeth in a broad grin and merrily resumed his work. Well, who cares? Everything's better with an audience. Merrily, as if to declare that even accident was one of the charms of the drama. I'll be damned if I took in an extravaganza this huge on my lonesome. Ha ha! The Wetland Mansion. And tell me, what do I look like from your point of view? A sudden curiosity prompted Sigma to question the shadows. Sigma had never pondered his own identity. He was as little interested in himself as he was the events of the wider world. He did not even know his precise age. He was often taken in for being in his late teens. He had a feeling he stopped growing and aging several years earlier. Those wannabes fiddled with your body too much when you were a child soldier, his employer had jibed. I guess your lifespan's probably shorter than a normal person's. Like, you'll be young for a long time, but when your time comes, you'll age rapidly, and that's all she wrote. She was probably right, but he did not care. He knew that, given his line of work, his chance of dying of old age were extremely slim. He was, however, interested in what he was. Sigma did not believe in gods or Buddhas. The moment he became a participant in the Holy Grail War, he realized the existence of powers far beyond him. That understanding did not, of course, mean he put any faith in them. Sigma merely wanted to know what one of those great powers thought of him. He would probably say that he was trash, or that he might as well not exist. He expected it to conclude that his life had no meaning, but he still had to ask. He had no intention of complying if it told him to die, but if it told him that his existence was meaningless, Sigma would not have been able to substantiate a rebuttal. While Sigma was thinking of all that, the child with the serpent staff was shaking his head with a troubled expression. Sorry, but Watcher can't see into the past. It's only been observing events since the moment it was summoned. So, as far as Watcher is concerned, you aren't anyone yet. There's no yet. I'm gonna go on being nobody. I wonder. That means you could become anyone, and if you obtain the Grail, you could gain the power to rival heroic spirits. The Holy Grail, omnipotent granter of wishes. Sigma pondered again what he would do if he did obtain it. As before, however, no wish for such an exalted artifact occurred to him. I wonder, if I did get the Grail, could I have more ordinary dreams? Dreams as in aspirations, Not the kind you see at night, Sigma explained disjointedly. Oh, that's a great idea. The child with the serpent staff with the deep smoker voice assented brightly. Yes, I'm sure you could dream if you got the Grail, just like the Watcher goes on observing reality. The ability to observe what happens in the city. I bet a normal servant could win the Grail War easily with that. Precisely, boy. See, you finally put it together. The captain flashed a wicked grin. Indeed. If the other participants were to learn of your ability, they would fight to claim you before going after the Grail. What? Sigma furrowed his brows slightly. He considered for a moment and realized that what the captain said made sense. I see. At present, I'm effectively a resource. You're a one-of-a-kind resource dropped smack dab in the middle of a battlefield, boy. The struggle to claim you will be a fierce one. I don't mind. I just don't want to get dragged into it and die. He might not have dreams, but he disliked pain, and he did not want to die or starve. Sigma considered his best course to fulfill those minimal desires. And get stronger, the boy with the wings on his back told him with a kind smile. If you don't want to get dragged in, join the side that drags others in. Don't be unreasonable. Even my employer is a crazy mage. Overcome your obstacles. Watcher will keep giving you trials you may well call unreasonable. Overcome them, and little by little, you'll become someone. You won't just be Soldier A anymore. Sigma considered the winged boy's words for a moment, still expressionless. Then, for the first time, he decided to disagree. It was a modest first step toward declaring his intent to escape death. I'm not Soldier A. I'm Sigma. Okay, gotta say, just reading that on the page is kind of sick, but also, man, what a waste of page. Oh, here we go! Chapter 8, The Wandering Kings Rock and Roll. Oh, I wonder who this is about. Okay. In fact, it's pretty obvious who it's going to be about, but let's see here. Day 1, Afternoon 2. In the forest. What am I doing? Ayaka Seijo asked herself for the umpteenth time in 24 hours. Actually, what am I doing? She wondered absent-mindedly as she stroked the fluffy belly of the beautiful animal snuggled up beside her. Oh right, the Grail War. The silver beast rubbed its head against her, keening. Or at least, that's what I thought. The creature was warm. Ayaka decided to think over what she had done in the past day. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. Oh, I like jumping ahead then going like, well, how did I get here? So let's continue. Ayaka was walking briskly, trying to put as much distance between herself and the police station as she could. The sun was barely up. Behind her, she heard Saber let out a sigh of relief. What is it? Oh, nothing. I just got a friend of mine to check out the police station. Wait. Saber does it rely... Okay, so then this would be Saber. Friend of mine, check out the police station. Who's that? Huh. And they tell me the prisoners have been temporarily evacuated. So? Yeah, this is him. I gave the police officers my word that I would remain in their custody until dawn. I was thinking that I ought to return. I was worried about leaving you alone. I was just wondering whether I should leave someone with you. But if the police station has stopped functioning, then, well, I suppose I can consider my obligation fulfilled. I did remain confined there until just before it closed, Saber explained cheerfully. This time it was Ayaka's turn to sigh. You actually plan to keep that promise? Contracts are important. Breaking one brings misfortune not only on the breaker, but on those who get involved with him. I don't really get it. And what did you mean, leave someone with me? You're on your own. No, I'm not. I'm with you. Saber tried to deflect the question with a joke. Ayaka shot him a withering look. Glaring at me won't get me to show my hand here. Does he have a knight with him or something? Oh, but if you're really curious, I could give you a hint. Don't need it. Ayaka shot an even icier glare at Saber and let out another big sigh. I guess it is true that you were worried about me, though. I still think it's none of your... Oh, wait. No, this is her. I guess it's true that you were worried about me, though. I still think it's none of your business, but thank you. Ayaka's thanks trailed off. Saber smiled and shook his head. No need to thank me. I really am poking my nose in where I'm not wanted. If you thank me just for acting on my whims, it might encourage me to be more officious. I know. If you're tired of walking, why don't I fetch you a horse? I'm sure William will produce one if I spend a bit of magical... Wait, William? Spend a bit of magical energy? No, I'm fine, really. Aika remonstrated with the heroic spirit. She did not know what he would do if left to his own devices. Then she voiced a question that had been on her mind for some time. Wait, who's William? If you don't want to tell me anything, why do you keep throwing out names of people I don't know? Saber looked away for a moment, then responded with a disarming laugh. Oh, it's just that you were looking so glum and lonely. I thought it might cheer you up if I hinted that we have lots of invisible friends, so... What? That's just creepy. Stop it. Understood, I'll stop. It doesn't really matter. I'll tell you about everybody in good time. What does this mean? Really don't have to, but there were lights and they might have helped with other things without my knowing, so would you tell them thanks for me? Saber's eyes widened for a moment, then he smiled. You have a surly look, Ayaka, but I can see you're a kind girl. Sorry for looking surly. An unexpected voice broke in on the conversation. Yo, little missy. Huh? I knew it. You're the girl from yesterday. You look like you're coming from over by the police station. You okay? Aika turned, sure that she heard that voice somewhere quite recently, and saw a young man with a hairstyle too gaudy for anyone to have seen it to ever forget. He was a man in a flashy punk fashion with a mohawk, a neck tattoo, and piercings all over his face and ears. Oh, it's the drugstore guy! Yeah, we've seen him now, because he was in the anime. The drugstore employee. Ayaka had asked for directions to her hotel when she first entered the city. You're that? Man, what a coincidence running into you here. Who's he? Your boyfriend? No, nothing like that. He's just someone I know. Ayaka could not explain a servant to an ordinary passerby. As for Saber, he stared intently at the man with the mohawk and the other punks nearby before asking innocently, I apologize for such an ill-bred question, but did you actually sew those theatrical garments yourselves, or are they the work of a specialized craftsman? Would you also mind if I inquired if it was you yourselves who did up your hair so full of rebellious spirit? Saber's eyes shone. The band looked at each other. Where's your boyfriend from? The Mohawk Man asked Ayaka. So you can see why I was confused at first, because they call him the Mohawk Man. And so I'm like, are we talking about like the American tribe? No. It's a white guy with a mohawk. England, Saber answered. Oh no, that's him, Saber answered, ignoring her. Although if you include London and Winchester, I wasn't there for very long. Ah, I thought they were pretty real over there. Saber's eyes lighted on the guitar case slung over the bewildered Mohawk man's shoulder, then widened as if he put something together. Might you be minstrels? Minstrels? Man, that's a weird way of putting it. Also a word you probably don't want to use in the United States with its history. Oh, my apologies. The knowledge I've been granted is far from impartial. Where might I hear you play? A church? A tavern? The theater? Oh, but I just destroyed it. It would be easy to take Saber's words for mockery. To Aika's ears, however, they sounded oddly free of malice. Before now, he always acted just a little aloof. Now there was a childlike innocence to his questions. The sight made Ayaka realize something. I think he might be into music. The Mohawk man and his friends seemed to have taken Saber's questions the same way Ayaka had. She could not tell if this was the influence of the charisma he possessed as a heroic spirit, or to have recognized him as a... Ayaka had. She could not tell if this was the influence of the charisma he possessed as a heroic spirit, and to have recognized him as an eccentric music lover. I don't really get you, but us playing a church? Huh, that's a good one. Reminds me of that Whoopi Goldberg movie. Whoopi Goldberg confirmed for Fate Grand Order? No way. No way. Okay. Is that the name of a famous singer? Well, something like that, the Mohawk man shrugged. We were playing an all-night gig when there were gunshots or explosions or something. Cops put out some kind of evacuation order, so our audience got kicked out. What a disaster, Ayaka nodded. Remembering what she had seen of the fight between the priest and the vampire made her break out in a cold sweat. Hey, do you guys want to hear us play? It's free. Oh, Ayaka, where they were supposed to be in hiding and self-conscious about accepting anything for free, was about to decline when... Are you sure? Thank you. You're fine fellows. Even once I've returned to the throne, I will never forget this debt. When she saw Saber with a blazing gleam in his eyes, looking as delighted as a child who had just met a movie star for the first time, Ayaka was sure. No doubt about it, this hero is really into music. Several minutes later, the Mohawk man and his bandmates were showing Ayaka and Saber into an underground nightclub. The stairs are pretty steep, so watch your step. Sorry, but this building's too old for an elevator or anything like that, the Mohawk man explained apologetically. He had apparently mistaken Ayaka's intention asking whether the building had an elevator. Ayaka felt a little guilty about that. Forgot about her elevator thing. Still, she thought, this heroic spirit looks like he's got to be from the Middle Ages. I don't know much about punk and metal and all that, but won't anything this flashy rock band plays be totally different from any music from his time? It would have to be more classical. No, Saber's probably used to hearing stuff way older than Mozart or Beethoven. What'll I do if he explodes when he hears rock? That's really funny. There are a lot of people who get mad about youth-oriented music even in this time. Pessimistic but having nowhere to go, Ayaka let herself be swept along in the wake of Saber and the bandmates. She resolved if Saber shouted there is no music or something made a scene, she would try the power of these command spells and drag him away by force. Command seals, huh? I've been told how to use them, but I wonder if they'll really work. We haven't made a formal contract, and my command seals are fake to begin with. Fake command seals, created solely to usurp the rights of a master. These 5 designs had been planted in Ayaka's body by the White Woman immediately before her arrival in Snowfield. The White Woman had said they possessed the same power to command a servant as genuine command seals did. Ayaka doubted how much of that was true. This Holy Grail War had, after all, turned out to be quite a lot different from what the White Woman had told Ayaka. The Holy Grail War is a battle to the death fought where no one could see, she said. And even that's not right. And even if these command seals were real, well, would I be able to use them like a mage? Weighed down by anxiety, as she descended the stairs, prepared to find a fresh hell waiting for her at the bottom of them, Ayaka's fears turned out to be groundless. Astounding! Ayaka, Saber, and the remaining staff were the Lonely Concert's only audience. The performance came to an end, however. The instant the performance came to the end, however, Saber's thunderous applause was enthusiastic enough to match 100 fans. Marvelous! Moving! I must present this feeling in an ode to Avalon. No, it needs no ornamentation. Simply marvelous will suffice. Isn't it wonderful, Ayaka? Do all the minstrels of this era play with such intensity? Huh? Ayaka fumbled for an answer. What is the music they just played called? Saber's eyes shining, asked quietly so that only Ayaka could hear. It's unlike anything I heard in my time. What genre is it? I can't think why the throne didn't give me this knowledge. Nothing could be more important. Is it possible that something may be amiss with this Grail War after all? I'm pretty sure the only thing amiss here is you. This is, punk? Or maybe metal? Oh, you can call it whatever. The Mohawk guitarist broke in. He had walked over once he was done playing and overheard Ayaka. Seeing the pair whispering must have sparked his interest. There were a bunch of guys in here a little while ago fighting about whether it's metal or punk, but we just do what we feel like. Plain rock and roll's fine. Seeing Saber simply enjoy their music without quibbling over it quibbling what to call it, seemed to make him a little embarrassed. Rock and roll. I see. Saber then turned his eyes to the electric guitar in the Mohawk man's hands. So this is a modern instrument. It sounded peculiar when I first heard it, but that thunderous roar harmonized wonderfully with the melody. It felt like it reached through my guts to grip my soul. The Mohawk man seemed mystified to hear Saber speak as if he had never seen an electric guitar before. Man, I thought you were just talking about your subgenres. Was this actually your first time hearing rock? Oh, so rock and roll shortens to rock. Yes, ashamed as I am to admit it, I've never heard of it before. I may have in another time and place, but my present self at least has no memory of it. I never imagined I would have a chance to be so impressed. I don't get you, man. What kind of rock in England have you been living under? You sure you didn't time slip out of the Middle Ages? The woman who played bass joked. I'd like to imagine that that's Kukri from Bochi. She's in this, by the way. I'm just imagining. I'm probably going to make the thumbnail be Kukri and Whoopi Goldberg, and people are going to be like, what the hell happens in Fate? And I'm just going to say, gotta watch the video to find out. A wry grin was the best I could manage. The Mohawk man proffered his electric guitar to Saber, who was in the middle of watching it with childlike glee. You want to give it a try? May I? After that, Saber's solo performance began. Seeing him begin to master the guitar within moments of touching it for the first time confirmed Ayaka in the slightly misguided notion that, as he had what it took to be a hero, he could do anything. She had to take care to avoid being captivated by the notes he played. While Ayaka was doing nothing in a corner, the band members, including the Mohawk man who had brought out another guitar, began to harmonize with Saber's sound. They even started recording the performance with a video camera by the time they were done. That feels like a bad idea. I feel like we shouldn't do that. The band seemed so taken with Saber that the conversation eventually turned to what they should have for breakfast. Not only that, but they were also they also must have given some suitable unused clothes for the dressing room for him, because at some point he'd removed his armor and could now be taken in for a more reserved member. The fact that, coupled with the red streaks in his hair, the outfit suited him fairly well only further exasperated Ayaka. I refused to participate, so I know I'm not one to talk, but does this heroic spirit even take this fight for the Grail seriously? When the band members announced they were going to change and filed into a spare room, Saber came up beside Ayaka, who was sitting on the edge of the stage. Are you alright, Ayaka? Aren't you going to sleep? I'm wide awake. Hard not to be, after all that electric guitar. Sorry about that. Smiling merrily, Saber took a seat beside Ayaka. Here underground, he informed her in a low voice. There are no mystic codes, no surveillance devices linked to the outside. You're going to sleep. Now's the time. When she heard that, Ayaka's eyes widened behind her glasses. She had been sure that Saber had been carried away by the music and completely forgot that they were on the run, let alone the Holy Grail War. She had never imagined that he was thinking that far ahead. Then it was all an act? What was? Well, the way you acted like you were truly blown away by the music, and perish the thought, I was truly and deeply moved. Weren't you? To be honest, Saber continued. Wait. No, okay, so okay, someone told me this to be careful. So if there's no end quotation mark, then that means that it is him continuing. It's a weird choice, but I've seen it in other stories there. Okay. Perish the thought, I was truly and deeply moved, weren't you? To be honest, Saber continued, staring at the edge of the audience seating. At first, my idea was to slip into some place out of sight of enemy mages, and have a little fun hearing modern music while we were at it. I was fortunate enough to encounter such altered tunes. I want to thank you for not stopping me. Well, I couldn't the way the mood was going. The guy with the mohawk's nice, despite how he looks. Ayaka sighed. To be honest, I didn't even mind the music. Although you're making so much noise, I had to back off. I see. Sorry about that, but weren't they incredible? They put their depression and anger into their lyrics without turning them into simple complaints. I've only been accustomed to hearing chanson de geste. Chansons music de geste. What is that word? translation. Let's go English, or no, it'll be French to English, right? Because chanson, French, so chanson de geste. That would be songs of gesture. Okay. Okay, so like theatrical music. I've only been accustomed to hearing chanson de geste of the great King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. Okay. Well, that confirms that this character is not King Arthur. I mean, again, so I've heard this guy's name, but I have no idea who he is. Like, I'm sorry for being a history noob, but I don't know who this guy is. So, Saber started sounding nostalgic for the past, but his eyes were still shining. This hero's the opposite of me, Aika thought, watching him. He talks about all sorts of things like he genuinely enjoys them. Well, I can't seem to think positively about anything. He probably won't be able to get the Grail because he's tied to someone like me. Hey. What is it? If you're sleepy, I could ask if there's any betting for you. Not that. What do you want to wish on the Grail for? Now that's a surprise. Saber sounded a little startled. I never expected you to ask anything about anything to do with the Grail War. It's not that weird. I was just thinking that if you got a really important reason, I'd have to apologize to you. I mean, it doesn't seem like I'll be any help in getting it. Saber looked taken aback. You were worried about that? You supply me with the magical energy to remain corporeal. How could you not be helpful? Well, sorry. I'm a coward, even if I don't look like it. Aika turned her face away from Saber. Seeing that, Saber looked troubled for a moment before speaking. Why do I want the Grail? I'd like to know that myself. What do you mean? You answered the summons because you wanted the Grail, didn't you? That's how it's supposed to be, but even now, I've been summoned. I don't have a clear idea of what I want it for. What mages call the throne is a special place. Even time and world lines are mixed up. Okay, so again, fully confirmed, time and world lines are mixed up. The throne goes beyond universes. As simple as that. Perfect. To say nothing of space, it's possible that I might find a reason to want the Grail when I'm summoned in another time or place. At the very least, I don't have those memories now. I don't really get what you mean about time and memories, but isn't there something? It can grant any wish, right? I'd be lying if I said I had no regrets about my conduct in life, but there's nothing to wish on the Grail about. If I do get it, I suppose I could always incarnate and set about studying this era's music and theater in earnest. It might be meaningless, but I'd like to take as many songs and tales of valor as I can back to where my soul was, the throne I mentioned earlier. Aika could not tell if Saber was joking or if he was serious. When she turned back to look at him, a serious, pensive expression met her eyes. When she saw that, Aika knew that at least the words had not been a ploy to mask his real intentions. Saber genuinely did not know why he had been summoned as a seeker of the Holy Grail. Heroic spirits must have all sorts of reasons for desiring the Grail. There are probably even some with plans for it other than making a wish. Destroying it, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if the assassin who was there when I was summoned had something like that in mind. It is the Grail that the great King Arthur sought. As I hold King Arthur in high regard, I would like to obtain it myself. Saber continued, reminiscing about the past. I want to present it at King Arthur's true grave, but not enough to crush the ambitions of other heroes or put others in harm's way. When Saber had finished speaking, there was a brief pause. Then, with a wry smile, he nodded his assent to empty air. Yes, you're right. I'm not one to talk. I did, after all, let you shoot me while I was dazzled by treasures tied to the Round Table. Couldn't you also say I've learned my lesson admirably? Okay, so he is talking to okay, I'm like, well, who's he? Okay. You're talking to someone I can't see again. Ike sighed, wondering what was the point of his earlier promise had been. The next instant, her sigh became a gasp. I'll introduce you. The mystic pass will get a bit stronger. The words were barely out of his mouth when he touched the tattoo on Ayaka's right hand. Hey, what are you? Just then, a vivid scene invaded her mind. Oh, she could see what looked like the watchtower of a European castle, and in its center a man wrapped head to toe in bandages with a crossbow in his hand. He was staring at her. The eyes that peered out from behind the bandages were the piercing eyes of a hawk that had sighted its prey, but also kind. The man looked at her, averted his eyes awkwardly, then nodded. As soon as he did, Ayaka saw the nightclub again. What was... Ayaka was bewildered by the unreal scene she had been shown. Pierre Basile, a master archer. Who? Literally who? He called it an introduction, but the name alone meant nothing to Ayaka. She was about to ask for further explanation. When she heard Saber's next words, however, she ended up just flapping her lips wordlessly like a goldfish. The man who killed me. What? I can use 2 noble phantasms, my trump cards. Saber began to explain his particularities as a heroic spirit to a dumbfounded Ayaka. One of them is to take the souls of several fellows I choose, with their consent, transcribe them from the throne, etc., and make them accompany me. Oh, what the frick? That's crazy. I can't manifest them and keep them materialized from throughout. I can't and keep them materialized from throughout. Okay. If I wanted to make them corporeal as well, I would require an unreasonable quantity of magical energy, so much that any ordinary mage would run dry in no time at all. Oh, on the other hand, I can use my own magical energy then as a medium to assist me with their skills in magecraft, like the arrow that deflected the woman's arm in the opera house or the glowing droplets I used in the police station when it was pitch black. Also, they can converse normally with me, but it seems I can't talk with you, Ayaka, unless we make a fresh transfer of magical energy, just like we did now. Okay, wait. Ayaka's face stiffened. It was not as though she had not understood his explanation. She was ignorant of magecraft, but the white woman had pounded the bare minimum into her head, so she knew what his words meant. It was because she understood that Ayaka could not accept what Saber was doing. As for my other noble phantasm, I said, wait! What's wrong? Saber stopped, startled by Ayaka's raised voice. What are you thinking, telling me all of this all of a sudden? Ayaka went on, fingers pressed to her temples. Telling me the name of the guy that killed you is like telling me your true name. Oh, you know about Pierre? No, sorry, I don't know who Pierre is, and to be honest, I haven't figured out who you are either, but if some mage who knows their history better overheard you, they'd know you for sure. Maybe I'm not very well known, Saber muttered, tilting his head quizzically. He made a stark contrast to the flustered Ayaka. Well, I suppose they would, he nodded, looking grave, but that's not really an issue. I intend to tell you my true name. What are you thinking? I told you back at the police station that I'd tell you when the opportunity presented itself, didn't I? There's no fear of mages overhearing us now. It strikes me as the perfect time. It would be difficult to block all prying eyes in an inn or in the city streets. In a nightclub, on the other hand, there were at least no familiars or listening devices. Saber himself had said so. In which case, now, when the band was back in their changing room, was probably the time to speak. But still, there was a heap of more fundamental problems. I understand your reasoning, but you'd better stop. Why? Saber asked. He sounded curious. You and I are just linked by magical energy, right? Came Ayaka's forceful rejoinder. She was trying to stop Saber more seriously than ever before. We're not even formally master and servant, so you better save your true name for when you find a better master. Telling someone like me will only bring you... Oh, our name is Richard, Duke of Normandy and King of England. Okay, so yeah, that's what I heard. So you know what? It's King Dick. Saber's face turned suddenly grave. He cut short Ayaka's protestations by clearly speaking his own true name. Well, add a former to both now that I'm dead. Saber shrugged, flashing an impish grin at Ayaka, who was staring speechlessly at him with her mouth hanging open. My epithet, I hate that word. Epithet, Lionheart, is probably more famous than my true name or my titles. Oh, that's why he becomes a lion man in FGO, which I've also been told is not a spoiler for Strange Fake. It is just a, hey, what if we gave him a weird lion man form? Which, you know what? Sure, that's fair. I was worried when I saw it spoiled, but it's super not. I know nothing about King Richard. I know nothing about him. All I know is he had that epithet, and that's it, right? Like, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about him. So, if this is meant to be like a pop-off moment, it's not for me. I don't know anything about him. I know I recognize the name, and that's it. If we get more from this, I will read more. I can imagine they would. It's for Japan, but I can also see it not being a thing, and you just have to look it up yourself. So, we'll see. We'll see, right? For now, though, let's just continue. The present in the forest. I've gotten mixed up with one hell of a king. Even after revealing his true name, Saber's attitude toward Ayaka remained unchanged. She had nearly bowled over when she first heard that he was a king. After seeing him impressed by the fast food the band had brought with them, and single-mindedly listening to music in the club, however, she decided not to pay any special mind to what he had been in life. This is who's this saying this here? The club was equipped and heard. Okay, jazz, classical, blues, pop, all superb. Oh, pastoral, estampi. Okay, what is estampi and discord? I need to know what these are. What is estampi? Estampi, 14th century medieval music. Okay, what is discord? What is that? Old Assyrian lyric poetry by troubadours. Okay. Even the poets of the South have shown new breadth in their songs. The club was equipped with a huge collection of music CDs from all over the world, possibly a hobby of its owner, and Saber found new words of heartfelt praise for each one he heard. Ayaka, this enka from your country is wonderfully lyrical, and these anime songs are full of narrative and variety. And this land's rap so skillfully layers word and sound. It is a revelation. Oh my god. Okay, hold up. This is excellent. Because them including rap in the soundtrack from Hiroyuki Sawano makes this even better. The more of that she heard from Saber, the less he seemed like a king who demanded respect. Thinking that she could, however, respect him as a human being, Aika ended up listening along with him to a wider variety of music. The music of England, too, is enthralling in its diversity, from its nostalgic hymns and folk songs to progressive rock. It brings home to me all over again that music is freedom. He finished by watching the Whoopi Goldberg movie the Mohawk Man had mentioned on DVD, saying, oh my god, Whoopi Goldberg is super canon to Fate. I hope she's in the anime. I see, so this is a movie. A fine thing, although the feel of it differs from theater. Oh, this choir is superb. I can't believe Sister Act is canon to Fate. Aika had succumbed to sleepiness. I would fall asleep if I'd watched Sister Act also. Had succumbed to sleepiness around the time Saber had started watching musicals. Saber is absolutely watching High School Musical. And he ended up napping. Had ended up napping on the nightclub sofa. Before she knew it, it was noon. Once they'd said their thanks, the Mohawk Man and his bandmates, and left the club, Saber had suddenly announced, all right, let's ally with someone. After that, they had entered the forest, from which he claimed to sense the presence of a heroic spirit particularly strong, and we're just jumping through, what? And encountered a long-haired servant, beautiful enough to take Ayaka's breath away, although she could not tell if they were a man or a woman. Saber had launched in conversation with considerable familiarity for a first meeting, and the other did not appear to take offense. And what do you want with me? The heroic spirit asked, facing him. Saber glanced at Ayaka before replying. Well, I don't know your true name or what sort of heroic spirit you are, but I thought I'd ask around and ask the first servant I came across. Then, Saber made his proposal. Even Ayaka, who had heard it beforehand, thought it too unreasonable. Would you care to form an alliance with me? He really just came out and say it. People in the countries he ruled must have had a rough time. Ayaka heaved a little sigh and escaped from reality as she stroked the silver beast's back. Anyway, this dog's huge, but it sure is friendly and cute. While she was busy playing with the animal she took for a dog, the heroic spirit facing Saber replied with a gentle smile. I wouldn't particularly mind, but the heroic spirit facing I wouldn't particularly mind, but myself aside, what benefit would there be for my master? Oh, he's still dressed in his casual clothes, and you're still there. And you pet the pupper. Oh, you pet the pupper. You're petting the pupper. That's adorable. That's so cute. At that, Saber took another look at Ayaka and shrugged. If you care for your master, wouldn't it be better to avoid approaching an enemy thoughtlessly? I could say the same to you, or so I would like to say, but it seems neither of us need to be concerned about that. Yes, I'm sure we've both taken defensive measures, but our all-important masters are, as you see. I wonder what they're talking about. Ayaka, sitting at the foot of the large tree, was puzzled by their conversation, but she became engrossed in the fluffy feel of the fluffy silver beast resting its head on her lap, and set her doubts aside for the time being. Big dogs sure are warm. I wonder if that heroic spirit keeps it as a pet. The silver beast seemed not unsatisfied itself. It lay its body across her thighs and allowed her to massage its head as she pleased. Saber, watching the girl and the beast, sighed. I thought they were more wary of humans. My master's relationship with people is a little unique. He doesn't like humans by any means. I think your master is a special case. Mine seems to think of her as a friend or ally. Maybe because they're both unusual masters. Well, she isn't one, actually. When he was done with what sounded like joke, Saber said, So, as for the reason I brought up an alliance, last night I spotted a monster in the city. A monster? I don't know if you know them, but they're called vampires. They feed on humans' lifeblood. They're humanity's natural enemy and the Holy Church's sparring partners. Oh, first, do you know about the Holy Grail? Saber started with the basics. The long-haired heroic spirit shook his head. Only the information I received from the Grail. There was not yet a holy church in my time. As for these blood-sucking monsters, I wonder. There were monsters that fed on flesh and blood, but I do not know if they were the same. Oh, might you be my venerable predecessor in history, then? There's nothing impressive about that. It just means I was born first and I died first. As far as I'm concerned, it is the people who were born later who deserve respect. They blaze a trail to the stars without relying on mystery. Flattery will get you nowhere. Saber laughed. After a brief pause, however, he wiped the smile from his face. There's something strange about this Grail War. I have a feeling something is happening that the knowledge I received from the Grail cannot fully explain. You have any idea? Only, I was thinking that if the Grail War had been caught up in, or is being used for some calamity, we ought to eliminate that first, and make a fresh start. Saber glanced at Ayaka as he spoke, then lowered his voice so she could not hear. As things are, I can't be sure of Ayaka's safety, even if she seeks sanctuary with the church after my defeat. A vampire would have no scruples about attacking her there. Oh, I see your master means a lot to you. Oh, I wouldn't show this much concern for her if she'd been a willing master from the start. She refused to participate in the Holy Grail War, but she got dragged in anyway because she was linked to me. If I were to abandon her without taking responsibility for that, it would sully the names of the nations that succeed to my line and the great kings of the past. The other heroic spirit chuckled at Saber making such a grand proclamation in such hushed tones and nodded. How funny. You must be a king, but you're nothing like the king I know. Especially the way you seem to make more friends than most. Is that so? I'd say you've got more friends than me. I consider every living thing in the world a friend, although the feeling's often one-sided. As he spoke, the long-haired heroic spirit gently shut his eyes and spread his arms palm up. As he did so, the ground seemed to bubble, and from those bubbles sprouted innumerable weapons, swords, hammers, spears, one after another. But I have decided that there is only one friend to whom I will lay the depths of my heart. Saber greeted the sight with a broad grin. Hey, are negotiations established or breaking down? Established, of course. So I'd like to say, but there are two problems. The long-haired heroic spirit continued, still smiling gently. You see, that one best friend of mine is rather hard to please. Whenever I try to make friends or form an alliance with someone, he says, I will test you to see if you are worthy of my friend, or something like that, and chases them off with unreasonable demands. Recalling the distant past, his smile took on a nostalgic tone. In your case, I think he'd normally demand a test of strength. You're not a citizen of Uruk, so if you failed, I believe he'd kill you on the spot. From his perspective, you're a thief with an eye on his treasure, after all. I see where this is going. Is the punchline that this friend has been summoned for this war as well? I'm glad you're so perceptive. I can't bring myself to give you hope only to disappoint you later. I'd like to test you to see if you're capable of fighting that king. If it seems impossible for you, I'll exterminate this monster alone. You should just hide yourselves somewhere until then. The myriad of weapons rising from the ground turned to point their tips at Saber. Even so, Saber grinned, once he made certain that none of their points were aimed at Ayaka and the Silver Wolf, who were lying a little ways off. How kind of you. If you can do it alone, why hadn't you better kill me here? You'd be more certain of obtaining the Grail that way. Unfortunately, my wish is already granted. All that remains is to fulfill my promise with my friend. It therefore means little to me whether you live or die. It will be impossible to imagine a gentler smile, and never faltered, but its owner might as well have said, if the mood strikes me, I will take your life. Saber grinned cheerfully back. I love it when things are simple. I just need to show you my martial prowess, correct? Hey, what are you two? Ayaka started to call out, seeing the situation, but Saber casually threw up a hand to stop her from turning around, or stop her without turning around. Be at ease, Ayaka. It's only a temporary strength. It's only a test of strength preparatory to forming an alliance. I doubt any normal person would want to ally themselves with a weakling. You're saying you aren't normal, then? Saber greeted the long-haired heroic spirit's words with a wry grin. Then he raised his voice so to address both Ayaka and the heroic spirit before him. It does indeed seem that I am not normal. Actually, as a king, I was always making trouble for both my people and my younger brother. I ended up being called a wicked and unjust king by my foes, the polar opposite of my distinguished rival. Saber's words sounded self-flagellating, but the wild gleam never left his eyes. Even when I understood the logic of rule, I could never manage to restrain my wild gut impulses. As Ayaka heard those words, she became aware of a sense of discomfort in her body. My command seals are hot? A huge amount of magical energy and unmistakable tremors were passing through Ayaka's unique command seals. The source of her connection is Saber. It was as if, in exchange for the energy she supplied him, Saber's uncontrollable heat was flowing into her. More impressive than I expected. You must be an incredible heroic spirit. All those weapons growing out of the ground, and every one of them represents the pinnacle of human craftsmanship. To have all of them pointed at me? Saber broke off with a little laugh. Then another, and an instant later he loosened his pent-up fire in a peal of wild laughter. Superb! You must be a great hero. There could be no greater honor. We give our heartfelt thanks to you, to the Holy Grail, and to Avalon, the far-off paradise of the forefather of our nation's king, for granting me the opportunity to challenge a legend who walked the earth in the age of gods. Somewhere dark. I still can't figure it out. Francesca lay snacking on her bed. Figure what out? Who's Francesca's servant? Have we figured that out? I don't remember if we did so far. Oh, why that weird Saber showed up instead of Artie, even though I used that catalyst. What catalyst is that? Oh, well, her legendary sword scabbard is gone, so I used the box that it was sealed in. It had the same pattern as it on the scabbard. Oh, okay. A box? Francesca rolled over on her bed and cocked her head quizzically at the unseen heroic spirit's question. Yeah, a beautifully polished stone box that the Einsburns apparently found in Cornwall. There were traces of magical energy on it, and it had the same pattern as the scabbard, so I figured it must be Artie's too. Okay. Okay. Is that the box that we saw it in like Zero? The Great Forest. As if in answer to Saber's sudden excitement, the long-haired heroic spirit smiled and began pouring magical energy into the ground and the numerous noble phantasms stabbing out of it. Ayaka gasped. Wait a minute! The police confiscated his sword and it's still at the station, so he's bare-handed. And he's not even wearing his armor. Saber had removed his armor, which was composed of magical energy. He was still wearing the clothes he had gotten at the nightclub. Ayaka did not know how much good armor would do against the vicious-looking weapons, but she was at least sure that in ordinary clothes he'd be skewered in no time. Ignoring Ayaka's panicked attempts to stop him, the long-haired heroic spirit fired all of his weapons from the ground in unison. At the same time, Saber gave the ground a powerful kick and launched himself into the swarm of blades. As he charged, still elated, he uttered a single joy-filled sentence. Now, let's get started. The police station. This is the police chief. Well, Caster, have you learned got from the chief of police. Yeah. Have you learned anything about this, from the sword I sent you? The response the chief of police got from the heroic spirit on the other end of the telephone sounded exasperated. To hell with it all. This thing's not a noble phantasm. It's just a fancy-looking sword. I do like the design, though. Can I keep it? The chief had sent Dimas the ornamental sword that Saber had left in the police station. The chief had never expected Saber to abandon his weapon and prioritize flight. So much so that when he had returned to his office and seen the sword still on his desk, he suspected some sort of trap. It's technically evidence. I can't give it away as I please. As usual, you're harder than an overboiled egg. More importantly, it apparently fired lightning-like blasts from the sword, destroying rubble from the opera house. The officers who witnessed it had already undergone memory manipulation, and one of them even described it resembling a beam cannon. The chief had surmised that the power of the sword had been responsible for destroying the ceiling of the opera house in the first place. As far as he'd be able to judge, it was no more than an ornate sword. He had thought, however, that Caster's analysis might uncover something. He had even hoped that, if things went well, he might be able to exchange it for an agreement with Saber. If it was not a noble phantasm, that strategy was probably unrealistic. A blonde knight with a bit of red in his hair? Odds are that's Coeur de Leon. Coeur de Leon? I don't know who that is. Oh, is that another name for him? Okay. So you've come to the same conclusion, Caster. Yeah, and speaking of Lionheart, Guy was a huge King Arthur fan. Grew up hearing legends about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table for bedtime stories. His court minstrels were always singing about how great Arthur was too. Guy was a bit of a prodigal son when he was younger, and some even say he roamed all over the place looking for relics of King Arthur. I've heard that as well. The chief considered it just another one of the anecdotes with which later generations had inevitably embellished the life of any hero and did not put much importance in it. Caster's response, however, was almost grave. Minstrel culture grew out of techniques for passing on oral traditions from druidic mysteries to posterity. Or so one theory has it. Either way, you best not underestimate contemporary song and poetry. If you make someone hear something every night as a bedtime story, it's plenty possible for it to alter their soul like a curse or a blessing. Isn't Richard the Lionheart a hero from an age of relatively weak mystery? I'm sure it was on the continent. But well, he may have been from modern France. It's England he was king of, and England's an island nation. Hard for the mystery to leak out when you're surrounded by water. I would have been too strange if he touched some of it while he was wait, I would have been? Okay. I would have been too strange if he touched some of it while he was alive and kicking. The clock tower, one of the big mage headquarters, is there right now. That ought to give you an idea. At that point, Castor paused and continued to lecture to the chief in a solemn tone. Say, bro, do you know why they called him Coeur de Leon back in the day? Though they might still call him that for all I know. There are too many anecdotes about him. I don't know what you mean. The chief suspected it was more of the usual pointless banter, but Castor's talk did occasionally contain valuable information. He did not expect much, but he decided to wait for his servant to speak. They called him the Wandering King. Oh, that's what you mean. True, I have heard that during his 10 years on the throne, he spent less than a year in his own country, but that's not it. I'm not talking about how he always headed off to a battlefield or on his way back from one. Castor sounded as if he accorded some importance to what he had to say. I don't understand, the chief asked doubtfully. Where did Richard the Lionheart wander then? Wait, what? Over the border of history and myth. What does that mean? What does that mean? There was power in those simple words, enough to make the chief fall silent in spite of himself. Means that he was the last king with one... Oh, whoa, okay. Means he was the last king with one foot in an age where fairies and runes were still out in the open. Not something you want to take lightly. That's interesting, okay. Okay. In the forest, there is an expression, lightning quick. It is normally intended metaphorically, but the scene that burned itself into Ayaka's eyes, the scene that burned itself into Ayaka's eyes in the instant was so intense that it really did remind her of flashes of lightning. Oh, I got a cough. Uh-oh. We're good. Okay. Innumerable weapons, born from the earth, launched themselves into the air. Threading his way through all of them, Saber closed in on the long-haired heroic spirit and unleashed a sharp right hook. His opponent quickly dodged back, but Saber stepped in to match him and threw out a slanting left uppercut. Again, the heroic spirit dodged, but Saber's fist passed through a lock of waving hair and several strands fell, very neatly severed to the ground. Wait, are we doing the thing of Boxer Saber? Wait, are we doing this from Karna? The force of the blow had turned Saber's fist into a sharp blade, sharp enough that the slice through the hair breezing... Whoa, okay. Sharp enough to slice through the hair swaying in the breeze. Saber kept up his advance, sidestepping the tendrils of earth his opponent threw at him, and occasionally using even the weapons at their tips as stepping stones, all while unleashing a fury of blows worthy of a pro boxer. The long-haired heroic spirit was impressive in his own right. He continued to repel the vicious fists closing in on him with perfect timing. Saber had the slight edge in actual speed, but the opponent appeared to have the better of him in his immediate physique and deadened Saber's speed to the extent that he knocked his blows aside. The result was an even contest. Another volley of earthen weapons flew at Saber, causing him to fall back and make a fresh start. You're fast. I'm surprised. I didn't think you'd be faster than me. Was that reinforcement magecraft? The long-haired heroic spirit shook his head in amazement. Well, it isn't mine, Saber answered, his eyes still blazing. More importantly, it looks like I really can't get through to you with my fists. So the magecraft is your friend's doing. Have you studied boxing as well? A little. I tried combining techniques I saw in a movie earlier today with the fighting I've learned, but I knew it wouldn't be that easy. I can't go killing someone I'm trying to forge an alliance with, so thought I'd try knocking you out with a punch, but... moving like you just did only after having a little training and spectating is quite impressive in its own right. The long-haired servant laughed, and his presence subtly altered. Saber noticed that his opponent's manner, or perhaps his overall balance, had perceptibly changed. I'm going to come at you a little more seriously, as a member of the Lancer class, the heroic spirit addressed him. Saber, pleased to meet you. Once they had announced their classes, both grinned broadly and sprang into action. Again, The sight of the exchange seared itself into Ayaka's eyes like dancing sparks. She recalled what Saber had said when the black-robed woman had leapt around the opera house fast enough to leave after images in her wake. I've never seen anyone lighter-footed than Locksley before. Ayaka did not know much about lightness of foot. When it came to pure instantaneous speed, she suspected he outpaced the woman in black. Saber, meanwhile, had doubts of his own as he flew off flurries of punches. What conjuring trick is this? This heroic spirit's even faster than he was before. He had no way of knowing, but when Lancer's aura had changed a moment earlier, he had used his transfiguration skill to lower his endurance and magical power by 1 rank each and boost his agility. They were equals in speed now, but as Lancer had not lowered his strength, his deft strikes were gradually pushing back Saber's rapid blows. The next instant, Saber's right hand threw a water droplet infused with magical energy instead of a punch, releasing a flash of light and creating distance between him and his opponent. He used that distance, however, not to launch another attack on Lancer, but to retreat further himself. Scanning the ground, he bent down, evading the tendrils of earth and flying weapons all the while, and with one hand lifted a thick tree branch lying beside him. Then, pointing it at Lancer, he grinned. It looks like my thrown-together boxing won't be enough. From now on, I'll use a sword as befits my class. Is this that branch in place of a sword, then? Lancer sounded deeply interested. I've always wanted to give it a try. Saber shrugged. You know, playing at being the Knight of the Lake, saying, a knight does not die with empty hands, and beating off the enemies with a tree branch I picked up. Yo, he's doing the Lancelot thing! Ayaka had been standing beside the Silver Wolf and holding her breath as she watched the two heroic spirits fight. When she saw Saber confidently brandish his tree branch, however, she became a little more than uneasy. I don't really get it, but he couldn't have deliberately picked a fight barehanded just because he wanted to try playing at it or whatever. Could he? A bead of cold sweat rolled down Ayaka's cheek. As if at its signal, another massive volley of weapons launched from the earth, their points trained on Saber, who was brandishing his blade. Brandishing his branch. The blades were so densely packed that it did not seem possible he could evade them all, even at the speed he had just been moving. To Ayaka, the situation looked desperate. The next instant, however, the scream that had been about to escape her throat was intercepted by an even greater shock. What should have been an ordinary branch had begun to give off dazzling light. The police station. Let's see here. Oh yeah, according to the documents you guys put together, King Arthur's Excalibur blows everything away with a big slice of light. In modern terms, I guess that's a beam cannon. Yes, that's precisely why I assumed the heroic spirit was King Arthur, and the sword was Excalibur, but the chief brooded on Dumas's comment. It was said that Excalibur was no human noble phantasm forged by smiths and mages in the Age of Mystery, a divine construct created by the will of the planet itself. If that was true, could that really be the extent of its power? At that point, Dumas's amused voice sounded over the phone. Man, you might be surprisingly close, bro. What do you mean? You see, Coeur Leone took his Arthur mania too far. Didn't even matter if he was going on the battlefield or going about his daily business. Apparently he named every sword he owned Excalibur. Whoa, this is interesting. Apparently he named every sword he ever owned Excalibur. By the end, it wasn't just swords. Everything he could hold in his hand and fight with was Excalibur. That's freaking cool. That's freaking cool. I really like what we're doing. This is really good. This is real strong. Even the knife he used for cutting up his food or rolled up parchment, or a stick he found lying on the ground in the forest. Excalibur! Must have been the third time Ayaka had seen that light. That brilliant slash that had collapsed the opera house ceiling and cut through the falling rubble in front of the police officers. This time, the streak of light was smaller than it had been, but the compressed heat wiped out the myriad of weapons hurtling towards Saber in an instant. He kicked off the ground with the same speed as before, and a moment later he was inside Lancer's guard. He swung the branch, still coated in the vestiges of light, to cut down the startled lancer. That blow, however, was intercepted by the supposedly bare-handed lancer. Man, those look like they'd come in handy for cracking nuts. Oh no, that's him. Those look like they'd sure come in handy for cracking walnuts. Saber sounded impressed. He was looking at the right hand Lancer had used to block the tree branch. Lancer had turned his fingers into sharp blades and skillfully stopped Saber's slash by half burying them in the tree branch through its thick coating of magical energy. This much power through a tree branch. I'm shocked. And? Do I pass the test? Saber asked without lessening the power he was putting into the branch. From what I can see, you're not using even half of your real strength. Saber did not know who Lancer was, but those few minutes had been enough to convince him that Lancer was exceptional even among heroic spirits, himself included. You are strong. I don't know what my friend will say, but I think we'll manage if you run while I hold him off if it comes to that. Is this friend even stronger than you? He might be. In the old days, we fought for 3 days and 3 nights without settling it. They both gradually relaxed as they conversed. Finally, Saber lowered his branch. No sooner had the magical energy coiled about it dissipated that the wood crumbled to dust. Oh, I knew it. Saber sighed. Oh no, it's Saber. I knew it, Saber sighed. Once is the limit with wood. And then he started walking toward Ayaka. Hey, are you okay? Realizing that the test of strength must be over, a flustered Ayaka rushed over to make sure Saber was not injured. Don't scare me like that. What were you thinking? That wasn't a test of strength, that was a death match. Oh, well, some tests of strength do require you to risk your life. I knew a knight who headed off to Scotland saying that he was going to test his strength in the Land of Shadows, but on the way he was surrounded by 8,000 bandits and killed. Don't try to worm your way out of this with made-up stories. You could tell? Of course, no knight was killed by bandits, but the people were never tormented by a band of 8,000 of them. I'm so glad. Seeing Saber struggling to force a conversation back onto another track, Lancer addressed Ayaka with a refreshing smile. Forgive him. He just can't bring himself to tell you the risks he's been running for your sake. What? Lancer's words made Ayaka freeze. Has anyone told you you can't read a mood? The gods told me that all the time. Like when I slew their bull, I got an awful talking to that time. You slew a bull? Oh, I'd love to hear more about that. Saber was still attempting to force the conversation into another topic. Ayaka grabbed the braid at the nape of his neck and pulled it with all her weight. Ow! Hey, Ayaka, stop that. It hurts. I get it. I'm sorry. When Saber turned around, teary-eyed, he found Ayaka angry, but with her eyes full of tears as well. Why would you do something like that? What do you mean, why? I know, I don't know the specifics, but I know you've been trying to do something for me. But I didn't ask you for that. Didn't I tell you? I'm going to help you whether you like it or not, Saber shrugged. If you needed energy, you could use magecraft or whatever to trick me and turn me into a doll for giving it to you, Ayaka shouted back. But you looked out for me and saved me. You trusted me with your true name. Oh, this is all wrong. I'm grateful to you. I really am. Saber was on the verge of saying that he had done nothing wrong, nothing she should be grateful for, but he decided to hold his tongue and let Ayaka speak. But I'm not worth it. I'm not worth protecting or trusting. In the back of Ayaka's mind, as she shouted, was a little girl in a red hood. Every time she remembered the bleeding girl, a voice rang out inside her, a voice shouting at how vile and cowardly she was. Even though you've been so nice to me, I'm sure I'll betray you. I'll probably abandon you or sell you out for my own convenience. That's right. I abandoned her. I betrayed her. Back there in the summoning apartments, Remembering the past made Ayaka's head ache and her heart race. Saber gave a little sigh. You might sell me to my enemies? You really do worry about such little things, Ayaka. Little? Minuscule. It happens all the time. Even my younger brother, my own blood, once sold me to Rome. And he didn't just abandon me. He actually paid my enemies not to let me go. Saber talked of his relatives, not as if he was trying to console or sympathize with Ayaka, but as if the story really meant nothing to him. Your own brother did? Aika was shocked to hear something so depressing. Well, it was rough, but when I got back home, I found that my brother had gone as far as declaring me dead to usurp the throne, but he totally failed. The nobility and all the people turned their backs on him. I actually ended up feeling sorry for the poor guy. I mean, my reckless spending was the start of all the trouble. But that has nothing to do with me, and Aika started to speak, sure that Saber was trying to change the subject again, but he swiftly cut her off. It has everything to do with you. The way I've lived, it's no surprise when anyone betrays me or sells me out or runs off on me. I doubt I have to worry about this, but you haven't mistaken me for a good person, have you? I don't care about that. I mean, whatever you've done... War. Saber spoke the word with a little pride, but also with an indefinable sorrow. You see, that was the only thing I could do. Unusually for Saber, he seemed hesitant to say more. Aika was unable to speak. She was on the verge of sinking deeper into self-loathing when a short whimper came from her feet. The silver beast rubbed its cheek against Aika's shins. It almost seemed to be trying to soothe her. At that point, Lancer, who had been silent until then, placed a hand on the silver beast's back and said, "Come now. It won't do for the people I'm forging an alliance with to look so down. Would you like something to eat? I can prepare nuts and fruits if you like." "Yes, thank you, I'll have some." Lancer placed a wild fruit in Saber's outstretched hand, then turned to the trees a short distance away and asked, "Would you like some as well? You've been watching us for some time, and you must be hungry." "Huh? What?" Aika and Saber turned, wide-eyed, just in time to see a lone figure emerge from the trees. It was the black-clad heroic spirit, who had been present when Aika and Saber first met. "Ah, I'm surprised. Not even I noticed her," Saber said, steeling every nerve in his body to fight at any moment. The probable assassin stared uncomfortably at them through the gap in the cloth that covered her face. Then, without warning, she spoke. "Are you Richard, the Lionheart?" "I am indeed." "Hey!" Aika rushed to stop him, but Saber shook his head. "Now that she's heard this much, hiding it will be more trouble than it's worth." Saber's indifference prompted Aika to let out a larger-than-usual sigh. Still, facing the pair, Assassin continued. "I heard what you said." As she spoke, the girl assassin clenched her fists so hard they bled. The gesture seemed to speak of the effort the words cost her. "Will you slay the monster?" "If it harms humans," Saber answered seriously. "When I was alive, one of their kind not only interrupted a battle between me and my distinguished rival, I wonder who this is, but also slew a number of my followers." Saber paused. He sounded nostalgic and regretful for the past. He seemed to resolve himself before continuing. "Although that time, my rival, with whom I had planned to have an interview on the battlefield, and I, along with your chief, the Old Man of the Mountain, somehow managed to destroy the creature together." "Oh, shoot, that's interesting." "I have heard the story. How terrifying you must have been at that time." Assassin seemed ready to pounce at any moment. Saber remained on his guard as well. The situation seemed critical. Lancer, however, failed to read the mood. "This, by the way, is the second problem I mentioned when you proposed an alliance. I'd forgotten about that. As a matter of fact, there are some monsters I'd like to remove from this city myself, in order to keep my appointment with my friend, you see. I have a feeling the monsters you're talking about might be more dangerous than any bloodsucker." "Oh no. At the moment, they're just a black curse, and a lump of reddish-brown mud." Lancer's usual smile dropped from his face, to be replaced with a look of anguish, as he told of the presences he had sensed that day. But if they fused and seeped into the Grail, not just the Grail, but this whole world might be in a bit of trouble. Damn. The plot thickens. So I guess she's just here still. But, right? So she kind of seems to respect him? Because she wants to kill the vampire. So, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. This was really good. This chapter was... It was so good. Another really great one. Another banger. We now know the name of him. I'm going to call him Dick just because it's fun. And I can say it on YouTube if I use it in this context. So thank you all for watching, guys. We'll see you next time for some more Let's Read Fate's Strange Fake. Ciao.
Yo.
Let's